Did you guys happen to track the Buckeyes that were named in the preliminary Hall of Fame list? There were about 90 players total.
Every year there are 3 players like nominated by each school. I don't know who, because it was Chris Ward and James Laurinaitis made the ballot. I don't know if there's I don't know who the 3rd player was. Last year I think it was like Mike Dawson. He made it, if I'm correct. But each school like nominates like 3 guys and gives their justification, and then that gets whittled down. And so I don't know, Steve or Kevin, if you know who the 3rd.
No, those were the only 2 names I heard, both very deserving. I mean, Chris Ward played there in the late 1970s, was an outstanding offensive lineman. And then James Laurinaitis was a 2 or 3-time All-American and won maybe the Bronco Nagurski Award or something like that. So I would say, if they get one of those guys in this year's class, that would be great. Ward's waited a long time. I think he was an All-American in the late 70s at Ohio State. So, you can't put everybody in, that you want. Over the years, there's been some different anomalies. You had Pat Fitzgerald, who was very active in the National Football Foundation, played in the mid-90s, and he somehow went in ahead of Chris Spielman, who was 10 times better player than Pat Fitzgerald ever thought he was. So I don't know, and played 10 years earlier. But those things happen. So, it's all politics and in a lot of sense. But, I use that as one example that, let's don't hold this thing up to be the holy grail of everything that's right with college football, because there's a lot of guys who had Hall of Fame careers that aren't in the Hall of Fame yet. So, and I know they're waiting on some guys to get out of the NFL and different things like that before they put them in. But, it is what it is.
Well, to add to that, you won't get somebody in back-to-back years, period. The end. That's spoiler alert. So if Ohio State got somebody in last year, they will not get anybody in this year.
Yeah, it's hard to do. Very hard.
That's kind of in the rules. You don't get somebody in back-to-back years. So, all right, congratulations. You've been nominated. Hopefully you can carry it over to the next year, because you do not get somebody in back-to-back years. It's just how it works. And I've talked to somebody at NFF about it, and it's just kind of maybe it's not written in pen, but it's written on the back of the charter. You're not getting somebody in back-to-back years. So if they get somebody in one year, I don't pay attention to it the next year, because I know it's not going to bear fruit.
And if you're a player, you have to be eligible for the Hall of Fame. You have to have been a first-team All-American by a certain number of outlets, or by particular outlets. So Ezekiel Elliott will never be in the College Football Hall of Fame, that sort of thing. Like players that have contributed in great ways aren't eligible because they weren't a first-team All-American. Mark, you seem to be okay with that?
Even though he was the Sullivan Award winner as the top amateur athlete in America that year, but whatever.
These rules are moronic. That you've got to have a 60% winning percentage as a coach, which doesn't seem like it's unreasonable, but you just – anyone with half a brain that knows the game of football or knows a sport knows – Kevin knows we all know baseball. Okay, you're voting for the Hall of Fame. You know that a 300 average is good. You know that this you don't need to be told this. You just know, and then you put it into context, and you know that this 300 average holds a lot more weight than that 300 average because of other factors. Similarly, when Howard Schnellenberger takes a Miami program that's off the rails and about headed toward extinction and about to be canceled, and lifts it to national prominence in a national championship, goes to Louisville, lifts a 3 or 4 win program to a Fiesta Bowl win and a top 10 finish, and then founds the FAU program. And you're going to, that's going to take a beating on your record. You don't hit the 60% mark, you're not as good as a coach that hangs around for 10 years and goes 8-5 every year. It's just moronic. Pete Carroll coached 9 seasons. He didn't hit the 10th. He's not eligible.
Oh, wow. That's crazy.
Without rules, there would just be chaos. Yeah. I don't want to live in a world that's full of chaos.
What would we do?
Do you?
We couldn't handle this. There's no way we could possibly figure out who should be in the Hall of Fame.
like, because if you don't have rules, you end up with people like, I was going to say Pete Rose, but no, you don't end up with Pete Rose in the Hall of Fame, but like somebody who just hangs around and is a slap hitter or whatever. But yeah, that's crazy that Pete Carroll, because in the mid 2000s, USC was everything. Like they were unstoppable and they were a machine, and you were just hoping like, sure as Pete Carroll would go away pretty soon, and eventually he did. But yeah, the 10-year thing is that's just a bit odd. I'm glad like Kurt Warner, he did not play very long in the NFL, but he had a huge impact, and he was able to like there are no rules keeping him out of the Pro Football Hall of Fame.
Yeah, Sandy Koufax is a Hall of Famer. Nobody that has paid any attention to the history of baseball would argue otherwise. But
Kirby Puckett, same thing.
Gale Sayers, Kirby Puckett didn't play long.